Good evening. I'd like to call the September 19, 2022 meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. First, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is live and over Zoom. We are recording it. Is anybody else recording the meeting?
Got two people.
Okay, first, hand minutes. What is our pleasure?
I think you've got the 22nd.
Minutes of August 22nd. All board members were present, and we discussed stormwater, we discussed the fire department, the expansion. We met with Jeff Wolverine. Update animal control, which I hope that another update today. Here.
Approval. I'll second, pending just some grammatical changes. Yeah, there's just some misspelling, that's all. Nothing crazy.
Put that in our personnel jacket if you want to make that cut, right? All right, all in favor? Okay, first on the agenda, the fire department. We call the chief up.
Sorry, with me, okay, Chuck comes with me.
Absolutely.
Of course. I've seen Chuck since last week on steak roast. How are you? It was a great event, guys, and thank you for inviting us again. Always good to see you. So, Chief, we asked you to stop in both because you have an application for a probationary fire officer member, and the fact that you have something to share with the board.
Yeah, I'd like to share with the board that we applied for a FEMA grant last year to replace our old brush truck with new forestry unit. We found out last week that we were awarded that grant of $230,000. The town will have to cover a small amount. I think I emailed that out to Bob today, just a little over 10,000.
So 10,000 to get a $250,000 truck.
230,000, yeah.
Pretty good deal.
So it's going to replace our 1953 M37 military ex-surplus vehicle.
What are you going to do with that?
Well, by the terms of the grant, we have to sell it.
Right.
We can dispose of it. So.
No,
And that's the purpose of it, safety first. You know, it has, doesn't have safety glass in it, doesn't have any restraints, harnesses for seat belts.
right, but I meant the money you get for it could offset part of the town money as well, right?
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. We'll be offering that.
It was a state-of-the-art truck back in the day.
It was definitely back in the day. It's kind of, bittersweet for me. I mean, my father did a lot of work to the back of that, got the pumps and tanks in there, and it was custom built by our department. You got that from the surplus estate, and then you made it your own. So it's been a good truck to town of Hamden, but it's definitely served its time.
So delivery on something like that would be what?
We haven't gotten that far we all know the COVID supply chain and that there's problems with just whether or not you can get the trucks. And if you get the truck, that's going to be custom built.
So probably looking at like a year, maybe two.
Yeah. And no problem keeping the other one in service till that time. Yeah. Housing the new truck would be in the same place, or is it a different size, or?
It's slightly larger. I think we can, I think it will fit in the space. I mean, that would be one of the things that's custom built, to fit into there. If not, we'll figure out another configuration.
Maybe the brush truck too, you'd want to keep it small anyway for maneuverability.
Definitely.
Will there be any additional outfitting that we need to do to it? We'd have to think about what the different equipment that, obviously we need to put a radio system in, things like that, which hopefully will come out of the other truck.
Yep, the radio, we might have to swap, we'll definitely have to swap radios out. Everything else, equipment and stuff, we should be, whatever comes off the old truck will go on the new forestry.
Okay. So with this time frame, and you talk about a need for town money, but That's not gonna be for another, at least one town meeting.
No, I think what I'm looking for tonight is we have 30 days to respond to the grant, whether or not the town wishes to accept it.
Mhm.
And I guess that's what I'm looking for tonight is approval from the town. If we can-
Well, no down payments needed, just
Right.
acceptance of the grant.
This is a grant you applied for, and I think you had told me that Bob had signed off on the application back when it went in. What was your feeling about it? I think you alluded to it one time before. Did you really think we had a shot at it, or?
Well, we've been writing FEMA grants for 3 years. First time we wrote one for the brush truck, we're relatively new to writing grants. We were denied but encouraged to go back for it. Feeling strong about our grant, getting into the grants, we decided to try for a tanker last year. Didn't get that. This year, well, let's go back to the basics. Let's, because of the age, because of the safety, we took a bunch of workshops during COVID, thank you, Zoom. So we were able to really study what the key points were that the grant was looking for, so we were able to capitalize on that.
And Chuck, you helped with this?
I have not. I've been away for 6 years.
I know. Pat was one of the people who.
Yeah, so shout out to the truck committee and Pat, deputy chief, who did submitted the grant.
Well, good work on your part. I mean, you can't complain about something going back from the federal government on that. We'd like to be kept abreast, obviously, on delivery and things like that.
We need a formal vote, to accept the rule.
I think it's the time, but let's do it anyway.
Yeah.
Let's authorize the town administrator to sign off on the grant.
Formal.
All those in favor? Aye, thank you. So Bob, you'll coordinate with Pat, Ed. Okay, so when are we getting the tanker? Come on, now you're an expert. And you're working with a grant maestro here.
Next year is another grant application process, right?
Well, every year it goes by, I think we get a year older, so that's all I can say.
Right.
So that goes in our favor for that, I guess, if you.
Don't rest on your laurels.
Yeah, and then we just awarded a grant, they take that into consideration, so.
And I wonder about that. So, well, congratulations to you and the equipment committee as well. Good work. So next, you had somebody.
So we had a little open house months ago. One of the people that applied was Chuck Beaver. He previously was on the fire department for 15 years. Got off for a while, but then saw our advertisement that we're looking for people. One of the positions that was out there was photographer. We don't really have someone that's specific to that role that can take part of our the night out or training or any events fire department attends. So that would be his main role, being that he's been on the fire department and comfortable with his skills. He's willing to be a backup driver. So if I have several people out of town on vacation or holiday weekend, I can give him a call and say, do you mind being on call this weekend? He's willing to do that on and off for the fire department.
All right, the photography part you're saying is more event-based. Is there a need also for photography during a fire, stuff like that would help with your paperwork when you submit?
There definitely is. I mean, the larger fires and stuff, we definitely call him up if he's around to photograph.
Chuck, this is something you're willing to do?
Absolutely. I see the value in it for, just like football teams do, right? They videotape everything. And then they go back and they look at how they approach things and how can we do this better?
Sure.
And I see it as a valuable tool for the department of training.
I think experience counts a lot too. And actually, the other thing, and I'll take this wrong, I think it shows that to the population handling, there's a opportunity for more mature people to come up for the fire department as well. It doesn't mean we're all looking for the 21, 23, 24. Everybody has an opportunity to participate and give value back to the fire department.
Absolutely, and if anybody's interested, a great time to approach us would be the night out.
Sure. And that again, what day is that?
October 7th.
October 7th.
Sounds about right.
at Barton Burgess.
Yeah, right.
So, entertain a motion?
Oh, yeah, I got a couple questions,
Do you?
I got a couple questions, I do.
What type of camera?
Yeah, well, you know, it's right up my alley, so I mean, I gotta pick the brain a little bit while he's
Can you
here.
operate the drone? That's what Craig wants
So,
to know.
we know your experience with the fire department, you've been there, but what do you do to have the experience for a content developer, or, as it's called here, or photography and stuff like that?
Well, in my full-time job, I'm a training content developer. I do videos and develop training content. I manage an LMS system, an online LMS for our company. We have over 500 technicians that we train, in classroom trainer as well. So I'm well versed in the methodologies behind training and capturing the essentials of what needs to be projected to a student.
So, next question is gonna make or break for me. What's your camera choice? What is it?
Yeah.
All right, he's in.
I'd like to be a Zoom operator too. We're looking for somebody to do Zoom. If you know anyone, seriously, send them forward. We need a little opportunity for someone to come at night.
I know Teams well, I don't know too much about Zoom.
No, I mean, if you want a kid, something like that, would like to earn a few bucks, you need a Zoom operator. They're really good. No, no,
Yeah,
no.
make this thing work.
I'm waiting for you to grill
I have no questions on the agenda.
them. Excuse from this testimony.
Make a motion to appoint Charles Beaver to probationary firefighter for all chief Coolin's rules and regulations for, is it truck driver and photographer?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You still have his jacket, everything?
Oh, yeah.
Good job on the truck again. He's very Tony Gentile.
That's what he looks like.
Yeah,
In person this time, too.
it's good to see you.
It's good to be seen. Into the microphone?
Yes, 2 phones.
It's very important, that's why I have 2 phones. You paid for one of them, actually. Later. All right, so I came here for a few things. First thing, hot topic cameras. I called again today, later in the afternoon. I wasn't able to last week. I have not heard anything back, but I did get promised to call back.
And this is the upgrade to the town hall camera
Yep,
system.
last thing, I went through the emails, last thing they were waiting for was a server. Now, I know they're hard to get, but it's been almost a year. It should be done. I agree, you know.
Yeah.
It's another fiscal year. I still have the funds set aside, so we're okay with that, but it should have been.
Are we locked into this? I mean, should we be shopping around different servers, something? I hate to do it, but.
I did sign the quote for it, so, I mean, but I'm sure we can
Quotes are
get out of it.
valid for like 90 days and you're at.
Right, I'm sure we can get out of it because of the time, but since this is the company that serves Hamden Police, Wilbraham Police, Wilbraham Fire, I'd rather just try and stick it out. Yeah,
But they gotta give you something.
exactly, yeah, I agree, yeah. Second thing, my grants came in at the middle of August, actually, 3 of them in the middle of August, 1 of them July 1st. So I'll start with the July 1st one, the development grant that we get now because we're a regional center. I was awarded $429,100. Of course, $125,000 of that is the assessment that Hamden pays to Wilbraham. My director's salary, and I received $224,737 for equipment. What I plan on doing with that equipment is changing the consoles in Wilbraham, the radio consoles. We have 2 now. I'm going to upgrade those 2. They don't have, they're not serviced by Motorola anymore. I'm going to add a 3rd one, and I'm also adding one at the Hamden Police Department. Hamden PD was paying a lease to Marcus for those consoles. They've taken them out. I will take over, and you'll have one in there.
What was that number again, please?
The development grant was,
I have that
okay,
equipment.
$224,737.
Is there gonna be a maintenance charge going forward on those? That's gonna have to be in the budget or?
No, if there is, it comes out, it'll come out of one of the grants, but we will own it 100%. And if, what I'm gonna use that for, if we have a hurricane or a tornado again, I'll upstaff my location, and then the radio that's there will be an exact clone of the ones that we have there. So I could actually run a second person or another person in Hamden to handle town calls. If
So you got a
needed.
satellite site. as well.
Exactly,
When
right.
you say console, is that the monitors and everything, or is it just a
No, it's
minimal
the
set?
monitors, the monitor for the radio and the computer structure that goes with it.
You
as
can
well,
do the
hardware.
IMC and stuff on there and everything?
No, I can't do, you won't be able to do IMC on it. They have computers already there for IMC.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that we may have, I don't know if we purchased those, but they may have just been the ones that were there.
So, but, free console, no cost to the town.
Right.
No maintenance, no lease agreement.
So we'll save money on the lease going forward, and we'll have brand new equipment.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts is paying for it, so
Very good.
that's what we like.
Great job, Tony.
Send them a letter.
Second one will be the support incentive grant. This year, the regional center received $413,139. That can be used for employee overtime, employee salaries, equipment that needs to be replaced, that's for a regional asset. If our radio systems were connected, which I'm working on next, if something went down in Hamden, since they would be a regional radio system, I can have that fixed through the support incentive grant that we get. I mostly use it for overtime and personnel costs.
Is that a new grant, or that's a grant we've gotten before, and this is just?
Yes, it's a grant that every PSAP gets, support incentive grant. Ours is so significant because we're a regional center.
Right.
The state gives us additional funds for that.
Is
Next
that
will
gonna
be,
a continuing thing, Tony?
I'm sorry?
Is that gonna be a continuing? thing?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you know,
so
like
you-
our Hamden deal is 5 years, but.
Yeah, so as long as we are a regional center, that's how much around there that we'll get every year. Yeah. And if we take out another community, it can go up. The next one is the emergency medical dispatch grant. This one is for medical calls that I quality assess and quality insurance. Every 10% of medical calls that we get every month, I go through and make sure all the quality is there. If the quality is not there, then we bump up our training for individual dispatchers, but so far we're all at, the target is 80, we're all above that, so. But we have to,
How much was that grant?
I'm sorry, that's a good idea. This one was $7,021.63.
So that's, there's no equipment with that, that's strictly time you're paying for.
Exactly, yep, time for, it's a state mandate that we do it, so the state covers the cost of that.
Same question from down there, is this something that's gonna be annual, do you think?
Yep.
Or-
Yep. Annual, and again, these
Will it
grants.
go up? Because, I mean, obviously, the salary goes up.
Yeah, so it did go up from when we were a single PSAP. When we were a single PSAP, I was getting about $4,000, but now it's gone up because, again, I have to do 10% of every medical call, whether it's a medical call at a nursing home, medical call at a residence, and 10% of those medical calls for that month, I have to do QA on.
Okay, but again, it might go up, when you say it costs, you're at $50 an hour right now, next year at 55, will that go up?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. And last but not least is the training grant. Every telecommunicator in the Commonwealth has to have 16 hours of continuing education. Regional center dispatchers are allowed up to 32 hours each. I like to hit the 32-hour mark.
Is that per year or?
That's
total?
per fiscal year,
Per
yeah.
fiscal.
This one was $30,015.72. This pays for each of my telecommunicators and myself to get that 32 hours of training every fiscal year.
How's your staffing right now? Are you looking for more dispatchers?
That goes on to my next item. The Board of Selectmen in Wilbraham gave me the authorization to hire another full-time dispatcher.
Mhm.
So I started that process. Applications are due on Wednesday, and then we'll go from there. That will be to replace, so right now we have 2 dispatchers on every shift. On midnights, it's a full-time dispatcher with a part-time dispatcher. That part-time dispatcher is going to be now a full-time dispatcher. That part-time dispatch position will be a full-time dispatch position.
Okay.
So
Are you gonna be hiring a new person, or is it gonna
we will be
be?
hiring a new person, yeah. Whether they're from my part-time pool or from outside, I'll determine that Wednesday or Thursday, depending on applicants.
You've got a full-time job, but easier to get
Absolutely.
applicants. right?
Especially now when nobody really wants to work too much, so it's tough sometimes when somebody calls out sick. I had to order a lot of people in, so that next extra full-time person will really make a difference.
You had mentioned connecting the 2 departments. Are we
Yep.
connected with fiber yet, or are we
We
still?
are connected with fiber. We can connect the radio systems through fiber. I'd rather do it first through microwave than through fiber.
Okay.
But
Reason being, microwave is more reliable, or?
microwave, well, it's more reliable. It's actually
Or
won't say
because less
cheaper, but
chance of
it's-
infrastructure
everything's
costs.
already there.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with the fiber, but everything's already there, and I'd rather have it go through the air first.
Yeah.
Than have everything on fiber, and if somebody takes out a pole, I don't want everything to go down at once. Again, we can have redundancy, but it's gonna take a while to get all the infrastructure together to have that redundancy, so.
We're doing similar like all there now, right?
We're up on Ridge Road, we were doing some work. We have 2 control stations that I moved from one tower to the other, gave them better antennas. They're not on the ice bridge anymore, they're actually on the cell phone tower, so they're up higher. We use those as a backup to what we use now for Hammond Police and Hammond Fire. So we have the backup on fiber coming down and microwave backup as well.
What would you say our coverage percentage is now for Hampton in terms of good communication?
95, 90, 95, yeah. There's some spots, but you're gonna get that with everything, you know?
Well, I don't think, we don't have any new dead spots, we've eliminated dead spots we
Yeah.
used to have before.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, so it's been, after all the kinks have been worked out, it's been fine.
certainly was a journey with a couple of those towers.
Yeah, I did, another thing, I did look at all the radio sites here in Hamden with our radio vendor. I wanted to get an idea of what was in there, what equipment was in there, so I had it in my head so I could put it on my files. So what we're gonna do different with our console edition is, instead of using a control station here at the police station, where we broadcast out of a radio into the system, we're gonna either hook up fiber or microwave into the commercial drive location and actually talk right out of the repeater system itself. So we're not going into a radio into the system, it's right out of the system out. I think you understand what I'm trying to.
Yeah, and what's gotta change down there for that to happen, anything?
So-
Or can you work with what's there?
No, we can work with what's there, everything's there. It's, the only thing that I'm gonna need, and I've asked Marcus for, is an IP mapping of the, all the IP addresses for all the equipment. They did reach out to me when, one of the police officers that was with us, Mike Kane, asked for the combination to the, Summers Road Tower. They didn't know if anything was wrong. I said, no, nothing's wrong. I'm just, getting my files together because I want to know what's in where. Everything's the same, everything's like how it's supposed to be. And they asked me if I needed anything, and I said, yes, can you get me the IP scheme of all the equipment? They haven't got back to me yet, but I might send them another email. If that doesn't get me anywhere, I might ask the selectmen or maybe the police chief to send one, just so we can get the IP scheme, so.
When we moved the police station, part of the deal was they were supposed to remove the tower up there, the antenna up there.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. Is there any advantage you can use it for, or?
Oh, if we could have the antenna up, yeah, I could, instead of having a shot from Ridge to commercial, I could have a shot from Ridge right to the police station.
No, tower here.
Oh, the tower here?
Yeah.
Oh, we'd have to have that looked at, I'm sorry.
I mean, because people ask why it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, if it's, manageable or it needs a little bit of
Would it do
replacement.
anything for you, like?
Yeah, oh yeah, we could put a site right here and it would fill in the gap right around this area here.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
How hard is that to do?
Not, it's just as long as the antenna array of
The structure,
stuff is-
right?
Yeah, as long as the structure's fine.
would you mind looking at it?
What's that?
Would you mind looking at it?
Absolutely, I'll have,
Yeah.
radio service look at it. I mean, I haven't
Yeah,
climbed a ladder in a
You
while.
got
but
people, you have people.
I have people, yeah, my people will take a peek at it.
I don't think there's any equipment left in this
I
building.
don't think there is, I know there's cables running down, but that, we would just take those out, or they would just take those out, put new ones up. But I mean, if we could stick, an antenna up there and make this a site for little money, why not?
Any issues with Action Ambulance moving out of Holyoke and into Springfield?
No, they've been good, they're still, still working, they're good. We work well with them, very good.
Any glitches?
With
Well,
Action,
when someone calls in for an emergency and call gets dropped or.
so we had an issue on, I don't remember the road. It was an accident, maybe I don't remember when it was. I think it was the end of July, beginning of August. Forgot what street it was on. One of the residents called 911 and it didn't go through on their cell phone. So I was away actually in Vermont and I got wind of it. One of my people called me, so I called the gentleman, and what happened was he was dialing off of Wi-Fi. When he made his Wi-Fi profile in Verizon, he never put his address in. You know how you have to put your address in? He never did that, so he dials 911, it doesn't know where to go. So it just went blank. I said, well, how did you get a hold of us? I think he called on the house phone. They plugged in an old house phone that they had and they dialed 911. So I'm like, well, first of all, make sure your house phone works. It worked. I said, if you have any other, issues, I can get you a cell phone. The state will pay for you to have a cell phone to dial 911 phone, but that's all it'll do. So he was able to have his cable company, Wi-Fi company come over. I think it might have been Sandnet or whoever it was. They built a new Wi-Fi system for him and they actually turned his information on, so now he dials 911 from the cell phone and comes
So it
out.
works.
Now, that's the thing. So for, I know my son does Wi-Fi dialing from home.
Yep.
Is this something we should do, an information broadcast to people? Hey, verify you
Yep.
have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So whether we put it out through the web, perhaps even through, I would think, go back to Becky and say the scan and subscribe, which goes everywhere in town,
Mhm.
especially seniors, this is important.
Yeah,
There may need to be some instructional periods for people too, because they may not understand how to do that.
yeah, and that's just Wi-Fi calling. So if I had
Yeah.
Wi-Fi calling active on my cell phone and I was here and I dialed 911, it would go to East Long Meadow because that's the address that I use for my Wi-Fi call.
Right.
So every time you move, you have to change the address.
Mhm.
People don't do that. Right. Sometimes people don't add their address in. So that's why when he called 911, it's like, I don't know where to go, so you just get dead air. So they're able to find an old phone, plug it in, and call 911.
Fortunately, we're able to.
Yeah,
So we could think about somehow we can do some, I don't want to say training, but public outreach.
yeah.
of that.
I mean, if we do it at the National Night Out, I can get some pamphlets on that from the state. I'm actually trying to get the state to bring out their 911 trailer, RV.
Cliff, can you make a note that we bring that up at the COA meeting tomorrow? That we talk about putting something in the scribe next month about that. Reach out to Tony and,
Yeah, don't want to know specifically what you want to.
well, even if you have a flyer, we'll print it and attach
Yeah,
it. to
I
the
can
scribe.
make something up.
Right. That goes everywhere.
Yeah, right.
Other issues, we touched on ambulance, as far as you know, we've got good, solid
Yep,
coverage. I know we've had some
Yeah.
BLS versus ALS coverage.
yep, whenever they're BLS, they tell us, and we note it, so it's.
Has that been frequent or
We
infrequent?
had one this weekend, I think that was it. Haven't done anything since then.
Big period, or is it like usually a 24-hour period or 8 hours?
This one was a 24-hour period, the other ones have been 8 or 16.
What happens in that instance if they notify you their BLS? We're relying on mutual aid for intercepts or?
Yeah, so what happens is, if we get a certain type of call, we'll dispatch action like we normally do.
Yeah.
And we will call, like we're calling in for mutual aid for ALS intercept.
Okay.
So if somebody calls in, they're having chest pain on South Road, well, they're gonna get action first, BLS, and then South Road will be Munson, ALS intercept. If they're
Whoever's
not,
available.
yeah, if they're not available, then I'll call East Long Meadow. If they're not, Summers, and then forward.
Will it depend on the location of which mutual aid community you call?
Yeah, so I have the town of Hamden in 4 grids.
Yeah.
Northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. That tells me where they are in the grid is who we call for mutual aid. So we have 1, 2, 3. If the first one's not available, it was the second one's not available, third, fourth, fifth.
Okay.
We'll never,
But at this point, it has not been that frequent.
nothing that would
Trigger
give me concern yet.
So are we gonna get more grants for us? Come
What do you want?
on. Well, don't say things like that.
I mean, if you're looking at this tower here, you could wait for a grant for.
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely be looking at that tower, because, throw another receive site or transmit site for the police and fire department. At least a receive site.
Sort of like a grant to upgrade that clock tower.
It was
Oh.
a regional asset, yeah.
Well, we don't rent it anymore, so it's off the grid.
Who owns
Such a
that?
great location.
A resident,
Resident owns it?
yeah, I want a mountain
But
road.
it's such a great location, top of Mountain Road.
Hmm. Does the town own any property up on Mountain Road?
We own Mount Vision.
Oh, I don't think is that at the top or just over?
I thought it was up high on there on the map.
Seems like, if the trust allowed it, yeah.
Say if the town owns some property, probably put a tower up there, just build one.
I don't know what the cost of that is, it's gotta be expensive.
Getting the power up there or something.
Mr. Chairman, he's only bringing us 1,104,012
This year?
tonight.
This year.
No.
Can we do better?
Well, by Bob's standards, I have to say, that's, that's very good. Tony, we appreciate the recap.
Thank you.
Definitely, this is the type of thing we expected.
Yep.
And we've gotten to expect because we've done a good job. of it,
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. It was,
Thank you, Tony.
yeah, thank you. Anything else?
No, you need a map to get back for it?
No, I'm good. There's no Wilbraham, selectors meeting tonight, so usually I'm here for 6 and then on theirs for 7, so I have to do it remotely.
They're off tonight?
They're
Dan's
off
making
tonight.
cake, are you staying?
I might, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Cliff? Sure.
been more walls. More walls.
Reportedly,
Hard fell out of your shirt.
Gentlemen,
Hello.
Howdy.
Right,
how you feeling?
he's here.
Feels like
Well
what?
said, Don, well said. And you know what, it's late. But I'd like to introduce Jeff Gendron. He's the senior auditor for Scanlon Associates, who has been our auditors for many years and done more than adequate. But introduce John Flynn, chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Don Davenport, Greg Rivers, and Bob Marco, and of course our secretary, Ken Courtney. So he's here to brag on the town of Hamden, I hope, and to just answer any questions you may have about the most recent audit.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as Cliff said, my name's Jeff Gendron. I work for Scanlon and Associates, independent auditors for the town. Here to talk about the 2021 annual audit. And just a couple things quick. You know, what's the objective of the audit? It's to give an opinion on your financial statements, and you know, I have it here. It's a little roughly over 60 pages, I think. And you know, how do we come about that? You know, we come. There's usually 3 to 4 of us that come. We stay for a week. I know this year Tom was here at least 2 days, so we had a little bit more staff probably than usual. And we concentrate, you know, mostly on your areas where you have your large balances, your large assets, which is generally, you know, your collector, who has your receivables, your treasurer, who has your cash and investments. Same thing with your revenue streams. Once again, it's going to be the collector through your property taxes. The treasurer's going to get all your money from your state receipts, other large deposits that, you know, run into the town. So those are the areas that we focus on. And then we'll do analytical procedures. We'll compare, you know, what you had last year over this year, also your budget compared to what actually occurred. Now, you know, we'll pick, you know, a handful of departments to test. Like I believe this year we tested the highway department, the Chapter 90 reimbursement program that you have. You get a considerable amount of revenue. Police off duty and grants, because of their nature, there's a lot of, you know, issues with timeliness, you know, et cetera. So we tested those this year. On the transfer station, I know we looked at the transfer station, the records on the transfer station department this past year. So through all our procedures, we gave an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. It's the highest opinion you can get. Tom likes to call it the gold opinion, or gold standard opinion. It depends on the value of gold at any day, so I'm not sure on that. But so like I said, and then if we go through here, you know, there's a couple sections that are important. There's a section with entity-wide statements that are very similar to how a business would present their financial statements. And then there's also a section on the fund financials, which is more modified accrual, which is really what you guys deal with on a day-to-day basis. So with the modified accrual, you don't care about certain long-term issues, you know, they're not represented, like the compensated absences, things like that that take over more than, you know, the next few years to apply to the town. So I wasn't going to go too in-depth on this. I was going to give a couple financial highlights, and if you guys have any questions. So the first thing is that your free cash is 1.1 million, and your stabilization is 1.2 million. So for a total of 2.3 million in reserves, which is you know, really excellent. Both those numbers are very high. And how do we come up to say, well, that's a good number, bad number, or you know, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at the overall budget of the town. So the overall budget of the town is roughly 14.5 million in 2021. And your reserves, as we said, was 2.3 million, roughly 16%. So anything over 10% is very strong. So that kind of shows that your policies that are in place, your financial policies that have been set, like Cliff, the rest of the finance team, the treasurer, collector, the assessor, all your planning that went through is working. And that's another thing that the bonding agencies are going to look for to go out to borrow. They're also going to look for your continuing disclosure every year, make sure that you can pay your debt that you have outstanding. And if you want to just focus on the free cash, which I said was roughly $1.1 million. I think last year was 400,000, and you used that 400,000 from last year to use 190,000, pay down your debt. And the debt was for, it wasn't for current operating debt or anything like that. It was for, I believe, a highway truck and police radios. So you're using them on capital projects, which is good. Long-term projects, you don't want to be using them to fund your budget, to fund the salaries of the town. So those are things, that's sound fiscal policy. So that was last year's free cash. This year, well, how did you come up with your free cash? You had the two components, basically. Your revenue that you budgeted, and the largest component that gave you a little bit of free cash on that was excise taxes. You had about a $200,000 plus budget on that. And that goes back to, I think Cliff's probably been doing this for a while, where the finance team has been budgeting kind of conservatively on the excise. And that's one you almost have to, because you can't really say what you had last year in excise you're going to get this year, because it depends on the economy, motor vehicle sales, things like that. So that's, it wasn't, that's still within the ballpark based on the full budget. And license permits and fees, it looks like we had a pretty good amount of building inspection fees this year, so that also is one that varies from year to year. You can't really plan that. If there's new construction, or sometimes if there's large businesses come to town, you might get a large fee, but then the next year you may not. So there wasn't any one real large item that jumped out. And then on the expenses, we have a detail, we break it down by function, and you had about $400,000 excess that you budgeted over what you spent, but there was no real one item. Like general government was, I think, the largest component, which was maybe around 200,000. That's mostly things that are in this building, your general government, all your offices, your accounting office, treasurers. And none of those items, there are all the turnbacks, the money you didn't spend, were all in the $20,000, $25,000 range. A lot of them had to do with like supplies. If you budgeted, say, 30,000 supplies, you only spent 10. Things like that. So that's where your free cash is kind of generated over the course of the year from those two items.
Well, I think that's what you allude to there, is that some of these budget things you budget for worst case. Transfer station testing. You don't know if the state's going to ask you to test this list, so you have to budget for it. When they come back at this, like you say, well, it's excess revenue or excess budgeting, if you will.
Yeah.
But you recover. And that's, I think Cliff has always said, it's better not to come back and ask for more. Make sure you've got it, because you're just recapping, at the end of the year. I think having sat through quite a few of these, it's all for Tom or whatever, I hear the same message you're telling us now. The town has been well managed by our finance team. The new guy next to you that's been here for approaching 50, right? Well, no. And treasurers in the past, Dick currently, et cetera, the assessors, the rest of the finance team. You're not seeing any red flags. We've had a gold standard, if you will, for a number of years.
Correct.
And it's a credit to your guidance, as well as, I think, the good people we have working for us as well.
Yeah, and I think that stability of the team as a whole, for the most part, being together now that the treasurer's been here for So, yeah, I don't know if he's
Yeah.
approaching, I don't know if he's approaching 10 years more or less.
All of
Yeah, just a kid in Cliffside.
All of that,
Exactly.
yeah. He'll catch up someday.
And that is very important, and as I notice, when they go from town to town, I think
Right.
that's, you know, that's great, you know. To do that.
Mhm.
We have good consistency in the important departments. You know, the collector, clerk, assessors, with Dick, myself, obviously other key departments, the selectmen. We've got the right people in the right place, and we've been very, very fortunate to be able to continue that. It's a little bit of a problem because we don't really have a method in which to replace anything that might happen unsuspectingly. But, you know, we'll overcome that if it ever happens.
What's our biggest deficit? We collected taxes, or obviously, we're aware of the fact the state came back late with payments, but nothing we can do about that, really. You have to show that, you know, you've got a deficit here because the state hasn't reimbursed you for what they said they would.
Well, that's
Although
on,
it finally
yeah,
came
those,
in
and
after the
that's
audit.
mostly on the grants.
Right.
Okay, you know, the grants are, we have to pay them in anticipation of the reimbursement, and they don't always reimburse right away. It took us quite a while for us to get our money for our sign, but we got it. And we were persistent, Bob was very persistent in chasing that down. Obviously, our biggest outstanding receivable is taxes, property taxes. But then,
Are we seeing that any a percentage that's out of the norm, or are you seeing about the same percentage every year?
I think it's growing. I think we're seeing a drift in that, you know, I think the 21 outstanding taxes are a little bit more now than they were a year ago. The 22s are a little bit more than they were a year ago, so I think that's a sign of the times. People will pay their taxes. We will catch up. You know, I mean, there's a way that gets taken up, not taken off the books, but transferred to another asset, where it shows that, okay, that property is now in tax title. Or, and we never take people's property, so we will collect the tax. The other thing is the tax deferrals. If somebody is unable to pay their taxes, they have a way that they can defer the taxes so that in the future, if they sell their property or if something happens in the family, we would then get reimbursed there. So yeah, that becomes a receivable, but it's an asset receivable.
I think the board's very understanding of that. I know last year, Don was chair. What can we do to bring that tax rate back down again? Obviously, this year, values went way up. People are like, oh, the tax rate's going to drop, but the bill is still going to be up there as well. By keeping a good eye on the expenses of the town, which is feedback from you, hey, you overfunded this, look at it again. You had us correct some expenditures last year, where you thought maybe you might have appropriated a little too much. By the work that Bob has been doing with grants to offset costs the town have, you look at the debt we have, it's minimal. You know, look at the fire department getting a truck for us that we're not gonna have to spend $200,000 on, you know, we need it. So those are the things we need to be aware of going forward. And we are very understanding of the burden that the taxpayer has, which includes the three of us. You know, we're right there with you.
And we're relentless on it. I mean, it's just because we're not in, well, we're going into town meeting now, and we're going to tax rate time, but just because we might find a lull in the activity, we're relentless on watching the budget. Sure.
What are you seeing in the town with the ARPA money? I mean, the federal money that's coming in ARPA, are they auditing that? Is the feds auditing it?
Yeah, so we'll be, you know, your independent auditors will be auditing the ARPA, the CARES, all your COVID money that the towns receive. You'll get it, a single audit if you reach the $750,000 threshold of expenditures in any one year. So if you guys, I'm not sure your amount, you may not. Yeah, so if there is a year we do a single audit and specifically test it, these other years we'll still look at, you know, the money that came in, the money that was spent as part of our general audit. We won't do as much. If it was a single audit, we would specifically you'd specifically get a report just on your single audit, and in there, majority of it would be ARPA related if you got over that threshold.
So the smaller towns are typically not hitting that threshold with their,
Yeah, it could push you over if you're on, if you're on the border. You guys never really have been on the border in the past. And if you're on the border though, it would push you over, we would do a
so, but that
special-
total is a per year thing,
Per
it's not
year.
a cumulative thing.
Correct, so even if you got $1 million in ARPA, but you spent it in 2 years, there's a very good chance it wouldn't meet the threshold.
Okay, it'll be audited, but not intensely.
Correct, yeah, it wouldn't be part of the same law.
I talked to Greg about, talking to Tom about doing an interim audit through June 30th, 22, that fiscal year. I have the money in my budget, so I don't mind turning it back if we don't do it. But an interim audit makes the full 2-year audit next year go a lot better. So we didn't do that 2 years ago, but if Tom's got the personnel, I'd like to have, oh, bless you. I'd kind of like to have an interim audit. And it depends on Tom and his personnel.
Good. Oh, it's your department. You've got the money, you know the people? Wait, when would that be? No. Spray her down, get the stuff.
Yeah, it would be through June 30th of this year.
Great.
Very good.
Terrific. Another gold star, thank you.
And then, yeah, in terms of the actual physical audit, they don't really do one of those books
You
anymore.
get those now.
Yeah, so now that we've had this meeting, and I've given him the engagement letter, which I was supposed to do a long time ago, they will be forwarding to the selectmen and the treasurer and the collector and myself a full audit that doesn't say draft.
Could you also send a digital copy to?
Yes.
We can put that on our OneDrive and we can,
Yeah,
light reading at night, we like that.
right, yeah, and then also too, after I leave, after I'm out this door, if you guys have any questions on it, because it is some great reading, 60 pages. If you have any questions on anything, feel free, Cam can either reach out to me, or, you know, even if I can't answer it, Tom can't answer it, Tom will answer, sorry, Tom can't answer it, I don't know, something I've never heard of.
I'll coach him. Then.
We'll get you the answers, so.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Waiting. Okay, we got the team.
I could put some on that.
Tina, did I hear you were going out for Sandy?
Oh, no, you did not. Hi, John, right up to the microphone. You did not.
This is from the clerk's office. We have
Yes.
John, Tina, Kathy, thank you for
Yes.
coming in.
Thank you for having us.
So you are representing Eva.
Yes, we are representing. So she sent you an email. It's pretty much laid out what we want to do for early voting days. She gave you reasons why monetarily and statistically, people, the turnout is low.
Sure.
So we have to put it to the state what we want to do for voting days. We have like 20 days before the election to do that. So we need your approval to select those days.
So, as you know, we had an email came to us with perhaps a different
Yes.
thought.
Yeah.
And me personally, with the environment nowadays, it looks like if we are cutting back hours, are we not giving the opportunity that somebody would say, oh my gosh, you cut back the opportunity? We're not being consistent with what we've done in the past. Is there a staffing issue as well? Yes. After just hearing the thing, and the cost involved, the cost is minimal. I don't want to say it's the optics, but it's important that nobody is disenfranchised. You know, it may be one person instead of 10 people coming in. but it's one person and they've got that opportunity to get it done.
Right.
Is there a personnel problem with keeping the same hours?
No,
So you can staff it.
yes.
You know what you're saying, look, we sat here
She
for
wants
5 hours
people-
and nobody came in.
Yeah, she wants people that are versed with the laws, and she's right there if we have questions.
Sure.
But she does want people that's versed with the laws and know how to properly take care of the person.
So we have so the town clerk is saying we can cut back early voting hours based on our prior,
It's
Whatever.
based on the size of the town and the number of voters.
but it wouldn't be consistent with what we did in the past session.
No, it would be different.
Well,
What
But we would be
in the pa-
expect.
In the past, though,
It's trial and error too.
because in the past, though, the state didn't allow us to change the in the last presidential election, the days were the days. You couldn't have less voting rights.
That I'm not sure of. I would
Right,
have
I
to
think
find
it's
out.
late.
Because of COVID too, right? Before that, there was no precedent.
Right, so now they passed legislation recognizing that small towns like ours, you know, it's not cumbersome, but it's an issue, and people don't vote. And then you have the mail-in voting now, which, you know, anyone can mail in.
Yes,
And,
I think we sent out,
Streets away.
Yeah, we're nice to-
I think we
How
sent
many
out
times too? also?
roughly 500 ballots.
Mhm.
And when we did the early voting, along with the mail-ins before the actual election, it was a total of 265, so about 225 were mail-ins, and the rest were early voters.
They're voting,
That came in.
or came in on the
That
day.
came in,
For early voting.
yes.
We do have, I mean, we have guidelines as far as, you know, the size of your town and what is required of you. So even if we cut back to the hours that were proposed, we're still above
Above
the
the minimum,
hours
okay.
that we are required to do.
Because Eva said, what, the minimum was 4 hours on a weekend and 6 hours during the week?
Yes,
Well, this is, you know, with the size of our town, at least one day per weekend, we agreed that Saturday was our day on both weekends. At least 2 hours each day that you are open, at least 4 hours total each weekend.
If you got that,
Right.
then you
Okay.
got two days where you're open 6 hours.
And what came out on Saturday, which is one person, I think, right?
No, they always have to have two.
No,
No.
How many
people must
voters?
work, but yes, I worked that Saturday, and we had one
One
person
person
came
come
in
in
for
to
4
vote.
hours, John and I worked.
And then the day that you and I worked, what was it, on Monday, we had 6. Yeah. I think the largest amount of people that came in on Tuesday, and I think that was 16.
Right, and I think that's what Eva was accounting for, right? Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yes, yes,
You know what, Tuesday, I don't know, I always think that, you know, if you're gonna do early voting, I think Tuesday is a day that you would always choose, just because election day is always on a
Tuesday, yeah,
Tuesday.
Super Tuesday.
And, you know, have a day in between,
No.
so,
we did have an email from Ben.
yes.
And his point was like, well, we just had early voting.
Mhm.
And we should be consistent with the next early voting. Then we discuss
For this
next
year.
year with the next election cycle or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's not a bad argument. People are used to something that just happened. What would the change be if we went, do we have a copy of that? If we kept the same structure you just had, how would that change this?
Well, you'd have to add Monday and Friday each week.
right,
And then it'd be 12, between you'd have 24 hours.
But
Over the course
but not
of 2
Sunday,
weeks.
but not Sunday.
Yeah,
Not Sunday.
Yeah.
So,
not Sunday, just Saturday
so
only.
it's still work days.
Yes,
So we still
And
have,
obviously an expense associated with it, but
right,
honestly, you want to take care of.
Well, I don't think we set a precedent, though, just by doing it for one election. It's almost like a trial and error. Tried this, okay, we didn't populate as many as we thought. Let's see what happens with a different time.
Right, but I think you're saying it's precedent for an election cycle as opposed, your argument, I think, is valid for next year, okay? We went through an election cycle, next year, we don't need to do this, but next year's not really a big.
And I think what happened also is that you have to report to the state like 20 days before.
Right.
If that didn't happen, it was miscalculated by 1 day.
Mhm.
So that's why we had to do every single day.
I think Eva's pretty on top of her metrics and analytics. I mean, I tend to go with what she recommends.
And I think it's good to keep these numbers, because I think down the road, early voting is gonna take off. It will eventually, down the road, take off. And yes, we'll be more than happy to increase the days.
On the road,
Yep,
but not this one. So you're saying, you're going along with Edith's cut back out.
yes, I did agree with it.
If we, let me think through that. If we did just all the days, right, so there'd be 8 days,
Yes,
if we did all the days, if not doing Saturday, I don't know Saturday. I mean, I know you have to do Saturday, but I'm saying, normally, if you, like the last time, we didn't get it in time, so we had to be open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
correct.
Right,
And so if we do that again, that'd be 24, that'd be 48 hours, right? And the state allows you to go down 25%.
Right.
We're only going to 50%. I can do it in 24 hours instead of 48.
Right.
So I know my point.
Well summarized,
Where's the
Don,
ball?
thank you.
I guess my point is, we're still keeping open more hours than the state. The legislation says you can cut back to 12 hours.
right.
Right,
We're still open more than the minimum
More
requirement.
board
Right.
than required.
Yes,
Right.
so we're still given that opportunity.
And instead of going down to like 4 hours a day, we're staying consistent
With
with what
6,
we did,
9 to 3.
9 to 3.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not changing that at all. Saturday is 9 to 1, right?
correct.
But you're also basing this a little bit on
Right.
the primary, and we're going to a bigger election.
Yes.
That's the other
Yes.
thing you have to.
That's the
Right.
other, yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And if it was the other way around, yes, I think fewer people are gonna come to the primary.
Right.
But this is,
A little bit.
and people are seeing a lot of impact in the midterms this year. I'm more inclined to keep it, I have to say. It's just, the right to voting is important. And you did this way already.
But you have to, because you need the mail.
No, because
The mail, vote by mail.
You
The
have
vote by
to
mail
approve
was
it, yes.
very good.
And the vote by mail was popular.
For the senior community especially, right, Don?
Yeah, I voted by mail.
3 times.
So, yeah, have you guys fielded any requests for mail-in ballots yet? I know those went out like a couple weeks ago.
I don't know if she's had any requests yet for November.
Well, when the original one went out, you could choose. You could say, you could do all elections.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
So, and I think a lot of people do that, they'll check that, because honestly, they can still come in. They don't have to use the mail-in.
The best part is you don't have to use a stamp that they do.
Yes. Post some paid envelope, send it back.
so we have to vote on this, right?
Yes.
So I'd like to make a
Yes.
motion to approve early voting based on town clerk's recommendations presented to us.
Second.
Any discussion? I know. Well, all those in favor of the town clerk's numbers? I will vote. See, just to show this is not a rubber stamp board. We did that on purpose. Yeah, not in open meeting. We're playing.
All right, thank you, ladies.
Thank you. for-
And the last thing is also too is.
Oh, we have to
Oh,
talk about police.
The
coverage.
police
Yeah.
coverage,
Yeah,
This is
from
something I had
7 in the morning until the last person leaves
So,
the building.
I had a conversation with Eva about this. This never came up to us before. It was always just.
I think I was there when we were
Yes,
talking
exactly.
about
This-
it.
They never had to do it for, the
Right, this is
legislation
new.
requires it now.
No, but we always had a guy there anyhow. It's just like, hey, can we have a cop? Sure, we can have a cop. It wasn't, so to speak,
Yeah.
formalized, if you will.
Yeah, but now the legislation says we have to,
Right,
I think we
Which I
can
think we
authorize
should've
the
done
town
for the
clerk
year.
though, right?
Yeah, it's by law.
right, but we should have like authorized it for the entire fiscal year.
Yeah.
We'll rather not come back for everyone. But either way, this doesn't require a formal vote. Bob, please tell the chief, assume the board is in favor of police coverage for the election.
Yeah, we can authorize the town clerk to facilitate her needs.
Right. Yeah.
Give her the authority to,
Okay.
as she needs.
And Bob, get a grant to pay for it, would you please? Thank you.
yeah.
I just want to ask you, in regards to the early voting, I had brought up a suggestion of maybe doing a robocall, and that was kind of like poo-pooed, that we didn't really need a robocall because the, you know,
It's
the
published
information
in
is
the
published.
Wilbraham
Yeah.
reminder.
But maybe just for the hours that are, you
I think
know,
that's a
just
great
to,
idea.
as a
No, that's
fine.
reminder, just as
We
a
can do that.
reminder, that these
I don't
are,
think we did.
No, we never talked about
Don't
that.
think it came up.
You want to set that up, Bob?
Do a robo for the early voting and the hours when town hall is open for registration.
Sure, and
That'd
work
be
on the
great.
verbiage with the
That'd be
town
great.
clerk's
Yes.
office, and yeah, we're good. Keep it under a minute, please.
yeah, because I think that would just only help with what you're saying is,
Right.
you know.
It only goes as far as people that sign up for the service, so we have to make sure we
I know.
even make more people aware that
Well,
that service is available.
Between that
Yeah.
and the newspapers and the bulletin boards, we're gonna talk to Becky from the senior center, maybe put something up
Yep.
there. You know, I mean, the more we do it.
Tomorrow morning, you're on the committee also, let's ask about putting it in the Scribe, about
Yeah.
people signing up for the Blackboard.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can mention the vote by mail,
Do you know,
along with early voting
It was funny,
hours.
Kathy and I both go to St. Mary's Church, and Father Mark actually brought it up at the end of Mass, right before Election Day, to say, oh, remember, it's your right to vote, don't forget, Tuesday. And it was just a nice, friendly reminder. Nobody's telling you to go vote for the Republicans and the Democrats, they're telling you.
Just brought it
It's
up.
just a reminder. Don't forget.
After the third election.
What's that?
When do you recommend that people all?
The robocall? I would say like right
Days, couple
before we
days before.
start, like maybe
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday, before that the first Saturday.
I would also say maybe 2 robocalls, one early informing and then just a, hey, reminder, this week.
One for election day.
Yeah, I know, yeah, maybe.
Yes.
I would really appreciate it. I think it would work out well.
We talked to Becky today about the Scribe, which is just about going to bed for October. Maybe she's doing some editing to it.
Okay,
Maybe there's an opportunity to put these hours in the Scribe
okay.
before it goes out.
That would be awesome.
Honestly, there's always
Please bring it
opportunity.
up, bring it
I will, I
tomorrow.
will.
Because we're printing some pages, there's a pie soon. Yeah, they're raising money for the addition, so. Apple pie from Rice's, $19, and part of it goes towards the expansion.
Yes.
Not a lot.
All right, we good?
We're good?
We're good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yes.
John.
Thank you
can
for your
stay.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. Thank you for waiting.
Done.
Carol, we're almost there. Almost there.
I'm okay.
All right. Streetlight purchase, streetlight purchase, these. Pam, streetlight purchase, we're still gathering information.
Yes, we are getting.
That maybe our out-of-pocket cost will be.
Yeah, sure.
Do we also have an inventory list of what's LED and what's incandescent still?
I don't know, we have our inventory, I don't know if we turned over the LED on the list.
We have changed out the lights that you want to change to, we're working on it.
I'm just curious about the buyout list, what is LED and what's incandescent, because that's gonna affect.
I'll pull up that.
Okay.
Okay, special town meeting articles. Thank you, Bob.
Do we have an updated version, or is this the one that,
There's an updated version.
the one you sent, the one you just passed out?
I think they're both identical.
Okay.
So, Article 1 would provide funding for the upgrading of the security system at the highway garage.
The only question I have on that one is, you know, Dick brought up about the, all kinds of alarms, all kinds of, so, should this all be together? or-
Yes, I've sent out a message to Senior Center, Highway, and others, saying, give me the information that you have on your security system. Highway, for example, is not hooked up, even though they have an ADT system, not hooked up to the PD, and so forth. So we're going to take an overview of all that, try and
What's it hooked up to?
Must not be fully defined.
try.
No, it was ADP at the typical phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I get the survey back, I just got the response from Mark today. We're trying to coordinate it and have one contract for security for our buildings.
And that will include Academy Hall too.
That will include Academy Hall. Yeah.
Right, I know that the senior center uses they have two systems, one for fire, one for whatever. I mean, we look at, obviously, they're pretty happy with it. So if you can get, they're pretty happy with the other company that does other buildings. Like you said,
Well,
we get
which
it all
other company?
together.
There's multiple.
I think it's Sabula pretty much does the other two
Well,
buildings.
that's who Jane
Yeah,
has been
yeah,
using.
so I think the only one
She's very happy.
off that number right now is the seniors have a different company, and the highway really has nothing with this.
And then Academy Hall is completely different.
Yes. which
Right.
we're-
So we really don't have a number for that at this point.
No, we do.
So that may be an issue.
So will Mark have a number,
Well,
or are we gonna try to incorporate it all in at that time? So highway and town facilities?
No, the problem is it's labeled right now for security system.
You want me to change that? Make
I don't know if
it funding for security system.
Yeah, so how do we know?
I don't know if you're gonna be able to have all that together, or if here we're just talking about hardware in place right now, because anybody is gonna be able to work with the same one. You put door alarms on, they're all the same door alarm. We need to get it wired in, and then going forward, who's taking over the contract for all that?
And who's gonna install it if they're not gonna support it?
Right,
It's
so I
for
think
service.
Let's get one installed.
Well, that's my question though. Is a company going to install a system but not take on the contract of maintaining it, monitoring it?
I think James got a couple of quotes. At this point, they're very close. So let's leave it on.
You want to go with highway garage security system?
Yeah.
And the second article has to do with clerical support for the highway superintendent, and perhaps we were talking earlier, maybe some help for the fire department.
Well, presently, we do have a highway clerk,
Right.
and that's in the budget already. If we were looking for clerical support, I've had a conversation with Mark about this. He has talked to other superintendents in neighboring towns. They all consistently tell Mark, you won't believe how better your life will be when you have somebody to do this work for you.
Explain to me what you mean, we already have a highway clerk.
No, it's a fire clerk.
Oh, fire clerk, I thought you said highway clerk.
So that wouldn't be an expansion of the budget per se. It'd be more like if somebody said, oh my gosh, I have this many hours, well, if you take on that role too, it makes you kind of work it out. We already know that Jamie would like to give up that part of everything.
So will we have a dollar amount that the clerical support's gonna entail?
Yeah, I think Bob has been working on what the typical hourly rate is for our
Yes,
schedule.
Yep.
Plus, I think we'll get a good feel for the number of hours needed.
and that ad that I sent out to you over the weekend had a number there,
And a good
an
job
an
description,
hourly
too.
rate that was suggested.
Mhm.
Article 3 is a special act to permit a police officer over 65 to continue serving.
Very similar to what we
Provided
did for the fire last year.
Exactly, provided he can pass this requirements.
So this would be for a, right, a reserve officer.
Yes. Article 4, increased funding for employee benefits. I think the board is familiar with the need there. Article 5, the moderator suggests that we put the government study committee proposal on the warrant because both it will inform the public and maybe generate some interest. So,
So what happens if the town votes it down?
yes, yeah, we won't be doing it.
What the danger of a special town meeting?
Additional funding, Article 6, additional funding for the emergency management system. That's a small amount of money, but what happened was when we switched the software package, there was an installation charge of in the range of $1,800 that we've got to cover. So right now we're in deficit.
So is that when we went from rave to?
Yes, rave to
Yeah, the other thing I mentioned this morning was that we used to get supplies for this from sometimes Board of Health involvement.
yes.
Last year, Cliff had us get rid of the revolving fund, we actually don't have that ability. So if Jane goes through the trailer, all of a sudden some of the bands need to be, we have no place to get that money. So I said, let's put, some money in there, so you don't
How
know.
much you put in?
I think it, what was the equivalent of like 3,000, which covered your overage and some supplies.
So should we have gotten rid of that Board of Health revolving fund? That's the question.
Well, I think in retrospect, I think we may have taken it in place too literally. Because we were getting,
How did they get money from it? Well,
what?
how did they get money into the revolving fund?
Well, that would be, the septic fees, things like that, and since we're in the regional thing, we didn't have to give those fees to the Meadow. So we were just accumulating money in there.
So permitting fees and stuff like that.
So he said, well, since we're in that state, I guess we don't need a revolving fund anymore, since all the fees paid out. And now the fees, when they come in, go straight to the general fund. Good for them,
No more tracking.
bad for us to have the ability to pay other things.
And I would assume transfer station
That's a
bags,
whole
that's a whole
separate-
separate,
that's a whole
nothing to do with
separate-
Board of
Yeah,
Health.
that's the enterprise fund. We did
Additional
briefly
funding
talk
for
about,
law
should we
enforcement.
reestablish the revolving fund? But I think that's bad optics at a special town meeting.
Article 7, additional funding for law and claims. We had strain on that budget in part because of the need for attorneys for the facilities challenge, as well as solar proposals and so forth.
There's some employment things,
We need some, and also, yes, some challenges from one of our unions.
Bob and I kicked around some numbers, and if you sign the bills tonight, you saw where we are, we're, I think 30% spending on the budget for the first quarter. There's more coming in, I don't think 35 is too low a number to throw on top of that.
Okay, Article 8, additional funding for the Board of Health expenses. Article 9,
Can we go back to 8?
yes.
What are we looking to fund with the additional expenses?
I
I haven't heard. That's what I'm asking. That's where the Board of Health revolving fund could have come into.
Could have been exactly things that would have,
We
like the
closed
phone
out the
or phones.
revolving fund, and so this would
Right.
provide,
Her phone used to be
some
paid for all
expenses
revolving,
that,
now it's we pay for all the expenses, phone charges, stuff like that.
Article 9, the Minnetonka Land Trust is requesting reimbursement of $8,909 from available funds for the overrun, the cost overrun from the removal of dead trees on South Road entrance to Minnetonka Mountain Conservation Land.
And then
Also, 10 and 11 are boilerplate, reducing the tax rate and transfer to the general stabilization fund.
Yeah, I'd like to get also an accurate number on the stabilization. Now, he mentioned 1.2, and I thought we were at 1.6.
We are.
And that might have been because
Remember, that
his
was
audit is prior
2021.
to the, that's what I
Right.
thought, okay.
So we're in a
Prior
new
to the
fiscal year,
transfer,
and
yeah.
yes.
And then when I heard the free cash was so high, I'm like, they haven't moved that money over to.
That's right.
That's right.
So that's,
Does everyone agree with the articles on the special town meeting warrant?
next week, I'll have the final for you to sign.
No, I mean, in both. Yeah.
If you're agreeable to these articles, we'll give you the warrant to execute next week.
So I'll entertain a motion to
We have to
close the
close it.
special town meeting warrant.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Right.
Is there any other, we have a vote for a cultural council member.
This is resignation.
The handwritten resignation. Who resigned? Brett.
Brett Castellano. Yeah, Brett Castellano tendered his resignation for Parks and Rec. So they will, yeah, Carrie alluded to, they knew it was coming. He just time constraints, can't commit. So they will have an open spot.
They've interviewed 2 people last time anyhow.
So they have another candidate that's interested in joining the board.
You think they're bringing that forward, so?
Carrie was hoping to have their candidate put on for the next agenda. I think she submitted that to you, Cam, right? Need to be on the agenda. She said she had talked to you about getting on the agenda. No.
Oh, send a letter to Brett, please, thanking him for his service. And so Cam, you want to quickly give us an update on Diane?
And what?
Diane Mackey?
Yes, Diane's been on the cultural council before for many years. She's a terrific asset, and you can only serve for so long. She got off for a year, and she's interested in coming back on.
How many members do you currently have?
We have Holly, myself, Jimmy, Joey Bunny,
And yourself?
and then Nate and myself.
And so that makes sense.
Oh,
You have a big enough room to meet in? I mean, it's obviously.
the selectmen's office is always,
All the secret stuff is? Seriously?
all the secret stuff. And they sit at the table too.
She takes
No,
some of it
Mar-a-Lago,
home.
that's where it's done.
She takes some of it home also,
Mar-a-Lago, that's where we keep it.
in her basement.
So, I entertain a motion to appoint Diane Mackey to a term determined by Bob and Pam based on our employee handbook.
25 years?
Yes,
five?
once we get her, we're not given
No, so you have,
until 20.
how's your,
Until 25.
is that working with your
Yeah.
people right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
I'll entertain that motion.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of reappointing Diane Mackey to the Cultural Council? See, people love it, they come right back. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Is there any other business to come before the board, any reports? Quickly, you want to give us a quick report on the strategic plan?
Oh, yeah, school committee met last week. The Mars consultants and superintendent presented the strategic plan to the school committee, and after a short discussion, they voted to accept the strategic plan. They also voted on a candidate for the new, new health coordinator for the school. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Just conservation commission meeting tomorrow night. Also, also, 5:30 during the day, so. I mean, Wednesday night.
Ron, you got anything?
All right, town administrator report.
Okay, we are concerned about the future of Action Ambulance, since they did not succeed in renewing in the city of Holyoke. But we've had a meeting with them on the 6th of September and subsequent discussions, and they feel confident that they can continue providing service to the town at the same level, same quality. So for now, at least, that's where we are.
Should we offer to have them in to have a meeting with the committee and the new representatives from Action? Just make sure we're all on the same page.
Perhaps not the-
Shared
perhaps not
conservation
the-
agent,
Perhaps not the 26th, Bob, perhaps the meeting after.
Okay. The shared conservation agent documentation is complete, and we have a target date for January 1. As soon as we get any comments from the town of Munson and incorporate them, I'll bring it in for the Board of Selectmen to ratify. Cake, we did have the 90th anniversary of the townhouse and the garden club last week. I was assigned the job of cutting the cake. Now, I have to tell you that there are no graduate courses in cutting cake, so this was my first experience. It worked out.
Let me be clear and state for the record that neither Don, Craig, or I had any cake at that event.
The mirror for Southwood Lane and Stony Hill Road has been ordered, so that, we hope to make that situation better. Commission on Disabilities, I've applied for a planning grant. And we should get a response on that sometime in the late fall. The Rural Streets Grant, the state is going to provide 4 speed feedback electronic boards. I'm sure you've seen them. They'll attach them to the speed limit signs. They go underneath, and in fact, by all accounts, they work. When you see that you're over the limit, you slow down.
Are we just gonna get generic boards and we can place them wherever we want? or
No.
they're gonna go on
The
street
state has
spots?
identified 4 areas of the town
Okay, so
where
there'll be a fix.
there's a problem and a concern. The water alarm system installed and hooked up at Town Hall. Fiber speed has been increased to 100. We're going to see how that goes. We may have to go to 150 MPS. Green communities, no action there. In order to go forward with that and get PVPC to help prepare the application, it's going to cost $7,500. The alternative is to wait until next year when they have their grant opportunity open and apply for a grant, get them to do it for free. The last allocation of ARPA funding will be paid by the end of this month. I sent the message on to the selectmen, that's what they're promising. And also, I think we're continuing to work with our boards and committees to make sure that they follow the new guidelines for postings, not only posting with the clerk, but legally they are now required to post on the town website their meetings as well as their minutes. And also to post on the calendar on the website. And I'm encouraging them now to also attach the agenda to the calendar date so that a resident can go to the town calendar and look when the meeting occurs and also see the agenda.
Right, and Bob,
And that's the report.
okay, the record officer, we talked about possibly Susie doing it, did she
Yes.
agree to do it?
She has not agreed to do it. I haven't seen her in the last few days. I did talk to the town clerk about it. Town clerk was positive about that. We don't know yet if she will accept or needs additional hours. But as soon as she wasn't in today, wasn't in on Wednesday, but as soon as she comes in, I'll have a discussion with her. If she is willing to accept the extra hours, I think we can transition her as REO.
What would her responsibility be? Because I'm interested in expanding that to, make digital copies of everything, and get it, put someplace. And, rather than just waiting for someone for a information
Right.
request.
Well, that, I think, there is an opportunity to get state funding, I think, to acquire an industrial strength scanner with a sheet feeder and so forth, as well as to get software so that everyone could have on their desk a little icon, they could bring up documents that we scan in. That would be, I think, a significant expansion of the REO's responsibility. Right now, there are no responsibilities until someone requests documents. So it would be an uneven amount of time required based on requests. You may have seen the article in today's paper. I'm sure you'll see it in the next few days, that there are groups now that are trying to basically attack town clerks and demand lots of information and documents. Probably an outgrowth of the new rule that if you can provide it electronically, you do it and there's no charge. I don't know what the purpose is other than to tie up town clerks and perhaps take time away from orderly planning for elections.
Yeah, isn't this whole fraud thing, where the elections are fraud?
Yeah.
To piggyback on what Don said about, the digitizing of that, we might want to look into our server management so we have more room to house that stuff. I just got a couple quick questions in the report, Bob. the rural streets grant for the electronic signboards, are they gonna present to us where they're finding these problems that they want to install?
I would
I'm
hope
kinda
that they
curious.
do, because what they sent us so far, they just said you have 4 locations in town, they didn't give us the
I'm
locations.
just curious, are they bad locations? Do we need to address them, you know,
Didn't they send us a
for public
map?
safety?
They sent a
They
map.
sent a map,
Did they?
but I couldn't make sense out of it. But what they're looking at are rural areas where they're concerned that you can speed and roll off the
I
street.
understand that, but that's an assumption. Do we have reports of people speeding and rolling off the
That's what I want to
highway?
know. Do we have safety concerns that we be aware
Yeah,
of?
so,
And then the other thing was the fiber increase in town. How are we with the phones? Are they working any better?
Mine is
Reports?
working fine. I haven't had any problems since we increased the bandwidth.
Yeah,
Are you aware of any? Has anyone complained?
yeah,
No,
right, yeah.
I had problems last week, but
Yeah.
today I have not.
We'll have to give that a few days.
The board now has an executive session scheduled, and I would entertain a motion to go into the executive session without a return to open session.
I move that the executive session, as the chairman has so declared, would be detrimental to effective bargaining and litigating position of the town involving the corner case.
Second.
We will not return to session.
All those in favor by name? John, aye.
Sorry, sorry.
Thank you all. Carol, have a good night.